Postcode Domination. I'm somebody that looks at the world in a really bizarre way at times, and I think what we need to start doing, if you're struggling for authority locally, you just need to start considering your postcode as its own avatar. It might not be the avatar you're going to promote to in the long term, but I would rather know what people do, where they go, where they shop, where's cool to go for runs, where's best places to go out for dinner if I'm on a healthy eating kick, and all these things. I want to know what my community offers for people like my clients, because if I know these things, I'll know where to start promoting. So you've got to start thinking of your postcode as its own avatar. So when we think about things like this, I'm going to ask all of you to do a little bit of homework. If you are looking to generate leads locally, I need you to do, in a 10-mile radius from your gym, you need to know who the 3 biggest employers are and what their interests are. You need to know what the most profitable restaurant is that you would recommend clients to go to on a night out. I need you to tell me where the coffee shops are that people would go to have coffee, like mid-morning coffee, especially if it's things like mums groups you promote to. You need to know all of these things, because if you do, it shows that you're aware of what your postcode offers people. The next stage on is to get published. We all know and we all whinge that the general advice given out by the media is awful. The thing is, most local papers are run by journalists, not nutrition experts, not health experts, and they'll just go onto the internet, find something and write it. Big things at the moment that people are writing about are sugar, salt, you know, when the omega-3 potentially giving us cancer thing kicked off, all of them were all over it. So make sure you're on top of nutrition trends and send an email out to the editorial team of your local paper and say, I'm really interested in health and performance, and I've written some really nice articles on the subject, particularly of sugar, because it's quite divisive at the moment. Would you mind me sending you over an article that I've written, just to see if it's something that maybe you would like to publish in the paper? Now, editorial staff are notoriously bad at getting back to people because they're always on deadline. So if you don't get an email back straight away, it's no problem. If you do get an email back straight away, what I'd say is leave it 2 weeks, then in 2 weeks' time say, hi such and such, following on from my email previous, here's an example of one of the articles I've written on sugar. I hope you find it of interest. If you need anything else from me, give me a shout. This has worked more often than not for people getting published in their local paper. Another good way of showing a little bit of charisma when it comes to getting published, find your local paper, read it from cover to cover, and tell the editorial team, say, I love the article on such and such. If it's a health-related one, even better. If it's a health-related one you disagreed with, just say, I think the intention was really good, but actually I think the advice was a little bit different compared to what I think is normal. So here's my spin on things, and by the way, here's an article with my justifications. Now, I know you guys, being in the EFM crew, lean towards a very evidence-based, justifiable set of reasoning for your content. And that's always a good thing to know. So when you're reaching out to editorial staff, making sure you're telling people you follow a very scientific, evidence-based approach, making sure that all the advice you can give is always justifiable versus the latest body of research. You do things like that, again, it adds to your credibility. But what's the point in all this? Well, if you've got a local website and a local social media, and you've got, you know, your Facebook page and things, and you can put that you have written for the local paper, it immediately adds credibility to your story. As soon as you've got credibility and you're shown as trusted, your local community will feel like you belong. And if they feel that you belong to them and your city, they're going to be far more likely to pick up the phone. Because the thing is, we've all got websites, we've all got Facebook pages, but not too many of us actually show well enough that, you know, where we're based, you know, whether we're local or not. So it's another great way of just showing people that you belong to them. Moving on, build partnerships. You know more than you or they think. When I say partnerships, I'm talking here about working with local businesses that have a joint interest in health and performance, and working with them so you can help them make more money and they could potentially help you make more money. But always approach a partnership with what's in it for them. Everybody always expects when we approach someone, they're going to think, what's the catch? What's in it for the trainer? They're just trying to sell me sessions. They're just trying to make money off the back of my customer base, offer value. Prime example of that, I talk about it a fair bit, is working with someone like a butcher. If somebody's buying from a butcher's, they're not buying on cost, they're buying on quality. So butchers, what are their problems? Well, they're trying anything to keep their customers away from supermarkets, cheap food. So they like to promote on quality. Now, we know, and we should know by now, that actually poorer quality meat doesn't necessarily mean poorer quality results. But will better tasting meat improve compliance? Well, potentially. But also think about, from a butcher's perspective, do people, let's for argument's sake say I'm rocking up at a butcher's, I'm a fairly overweight woman, and I am just about to buy a huge leg of lamb rather than a joint of beef. What's the caloric impact in both of those? What's the protein quality like in both of those? Is it something we should be worried about? Or if I'm really looking at a calorie-controlled diet, should I be buying white meat? And if I choose to buy lamb over chicken, does it really matter for one meal? Well, you can hopefully see by now there's a lot of content you could potentially write about. Don't avoid fat. Don't worry about the calories necessarily in one meal. The overall outlook is better. Do you know why you should choose chicken over beef, or beef over lamb, or lamb over anything? If I'm on a diet, do I need to get rid of sausages and bacon? You can write loads of good quality stuff for them. And once you're in with someone like a butcher, there's no reason why you can't then go on to create a, let's for argument's sake say, an ultimate protein pack for your clients, where you say to the butcher, what I want you to do is I want you to create a week-long protein pack. I need in there 10 separately bagged up chicken breasts. I need 10 lots of 200-gram finest quality beef mince. I need 300 grams of bacon, and basically make compliance easier for your clients. And whether you want to take a percentage of the sales, or whether you want to say to the butcher, no, do you know what I want to do is I want to try and create this and make this a really great thing for my clients. I'm not interested in making money, but what I'd love you to do is to help promote me in shop. And if you do things like deliveries, I'd love to put a flyer in, if that's fine. And just evolve the partnership. It doesn't need to be anything fancy or drastic, but what you can do is help people see that there's more to you than burpees and the hatred of carbohydrates. You can show people you know your stuff nutrition-wise. You don't need to be fancy. You need to keep all of this stuff very, very basic. And from there, just see what's available. This is what I mean. When you do a scan of your local area, find out what's there from a from a complementary standpoint. I'd be looking at sports shops, people that provide trainers. If you've got a shop that, let's for argument's sake, an independent sports shop that sells high-end, more expensive trainers than the cheap sports shop that's a national brand down the road, again, we've got to think, what are their struggles? Their struggle is trying to keep people out of, first and foremost, trying to keep people from buying their trainers online, and second of all, trying to make them choose a more expensive option. Now, if they're going to be more expensive than a high street brand, they better have damn good service quality. And more often than not, they do. They just don't know how to show that. So on your Learn to Lift seminars, could you potentially have someone come in and talk about the importance of footwear? Could you, for argument's sake, say go into the shop and do a basics of running seminar? It depends on what your interest is, really. But again, think about your local area a bit differently, because you could easily throw together a 1-hour talk for the customer base of a butcher's, a sports shop, a greengrocer's, a salon, a barber, an office, on anything, and it will be mind-blowing to the general population. You know more than they do. you know, and you know what, you know more than they think you do as well. So you've got to go out there and put yourself out there. But it's all useless unless you give a shit. You've got to make sure you care about people and their struggles and their journey. So when we think about businesses, I always talk about business to business, and the amount of times I've heard of trainers approach a business and say, I'm a weight loss specialist or a fat loss specialist, I'd love to come and speak to your staff, and then have the door slammed in their face is unreal. Because offices aren't interested in weight loss or fat loss. If you reach out to a company that has a fair number of staff, what they care about is staff attendance and staff performance. So you've got to think, what are these people struggling with when it comes to attendance, and what about performance? What do we know about nutrition? What do we know about training? What do we know about hydration that could improve the workforce of these businesses? How can we make these businesses see that we've not got a hatred for carbohydrates and that we just make people do burpees until they're sick? Because that's what most PTs do. So what we need to do is we need to show them that we know their struggles. The two biggest reasons in the UK for staff absenteeism is stress and lower back pain. Can training and nutrition help both of these things? Yeah. Do we know that most people in offices, especially if you worked in an office, I have for a long time, and I know the patterns. I know that mid-morning the sandwich guy is going to come round, and most of my colleagues would buy a big ham and cheese roll, a muffin, a Coca-Cola and a Twix, and that would be their lunch. And they wonder why they're putting on weight. They'd eat all that at lunch and they wonder by 3 o'clock why they're having a massive crash. They get into the office first thing in the morning, the first thing they reach for is coffee and biscuits. In the afternoon it's coffee and biscuits. They're not hydrating themselves well enough, they're not nourishing themselves well enough. They all sit like crap and they wonder why their backs hurt, and they're always stressed. So you've got information that could genuinely improve the life of most people that work in offices in this and any country. But I bet they don't know it. And if they don't know it, that's on you. And you've got to step forward and put yourself out there as something a bit different. Now, I get that a lot of you are very, very, very good trainers and will have a niche in mind. But this isn't necessarily for you. If you want to work with a specific niche, then hey, that's great. But if you're looking to generate leads locally, then you need to be seen as something who understands their local area. This could potentially be your niche as such. And especially if you own a gym and you've got, you're employing trainers, which I believe some of you are, you need to be on top of this, because you might have trainers that deal with different niches. So you might be the guy, you might have a gym with 2 guys that deal specifically with corporate health. On the flip side, you might be a one-to-one PT that looks after mums groups. If you have got mums groups and they're your avatar, you've got to make sure you're reaching out to them and understand where they're going for mid-morning coffee. What happens when they drop the kids off at school? Are they going to yoga and Pilates classes trying to improve their body? What are they doing nutrition-wise that we think are going to get wrong? Are they snacking on their kids' snacks and things like this while they're making food? What are their stresses? When can they train? All these things you've got to think about locally. Are there mums groups online? Bath's got like 4 mums groups that have got like rival online portals. I've written for all of them. You write for one, funnily enough, the others come forward and say, can you write for us as well? Are there buggy boot camps and things that are running, and why are they a bad idea? Because most of them are just, cleverly marketed boot camps that don't really have that many attendees. Can you create something of value for a mums group? So don't necessarily always think about a niche just being a niche that you're bound to. If you need to generate leads locally and build your profile, think about where you can add value quickest with the most impact to the most people.